I am very happy that we are able to have this session today and to gather some rock stars from the music retail world. There is perhaps, there's lots of effects of the coronavirus on the businesses that are involved with music. And although I go to lots of concerts and I'm affected as a consumer in many ways, the fact that music retail is being affected, particularly independent music retail, really gets to my heart. I'm a big fan of record stores, and I could go on and on about that, but I am going to turn it over to Andrea Paschal. Paschal or Pascal?
It's Paschal.
Pascal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I should have asked that earlier, but
right.
Anyway, Andrea runs CIMS, the Coalition of Independent Music Stores. I'll let her tell you about her background and that organization, and she'll also introduce our panelists. Andrea, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having us today. So I'm Andrea Paschal, and I'm the executive director for the Coalition of Independent Music Stores, which is a group of about 40 retailers across the country. Two of them are joining us today. And we are also one of the co-founders of Record Store Day, which is an event that you guys are all really familiar with, I'm sure. And so also with me, joining us on the panel, I have Paul Epstein, owner of Twist and Shout Records in Denver, Colorado. Hi. And then I also have Justin Johnson, that is the owner of Dark Side Records in Poughkeepsie, New York. So, so I thought these would be two great examples of stores to bring together today for this panel. I think that they're going to have different perspectives to bring to the COVID-19 situation, how they're handling it in their stores. So I think that's where we should start, with just talking about that and how that has affected the stores. Obviously, most of the record stores around the country have been closed right now. And so I think maybe that's where we should open is, Paul, maybe you could speak a little bit to how that's affecting you in Denver to start.
Sure. At Twist and Shout, my store, which is 32 years old, was one of the first large businesses in Denver to close. The next day, it seemed like, I think that's when the stay-at-home order came from the governor. But we closed completely to outside traffic and have since then been working on our online presence and selling online and through the various online auction sites and selling platforms, Discogs and eBay particularly. But, for all intents and purposes, we're closed, and we closed 6 weeks ago. And I have an 11,000-foot store, 37 employees, major disruption to the economic realities of our business, obviously. And we are waiting. Our mayor just today announced that Denver will start to have its first reopening of business on May 8th. So between that, triangulating that with the safety of our employees and community and waiting on PPP money, is how we're trying to devise when we will open and how much we will open again.
Right. And Justin, what about you? You're in Poughkeepsie, New York. How about, New York has been so heavily affected by this virus. And what's your take on the situation?
So we were affected right away. Obviously, we're pretty close to New York City, and some of the worst cases have been happening right down there, just down the road from us. And we first stopped letting customers in the store back on March 17th. And then our Governor Cuomo put the pause order in effective the 21st of March. And so since then, we've been completely shut to the public and have retooled. We're focusing on our web store. We launched an entirely new website that's only our used product in the store that updates in real time. and we're just trying to do the best of it. We've got a 9,000 square foot store, and I've laid off 11 of my 13 employees, one of which being my own wife. So that was a funny conversation to have. And we're just trying to get through it.
So obviously this has had such a huge impact on so many of our stores. That said, a lot of them, as Paul and Justin have both mentioned, they're moving a lot of efforts to online. Some of the stores are being really creative, though, with how to engage their customers. Paul has such a long-standing history in his community, 32 years, correct?
Yes.
And then Justin as well, you've been there for over a decade now. So, how do you maintain that connection with your customers when they cannot come in your store? So let's talk about some of the things that you're doing to keep that going. Justin, you have an interesting concept that you pretty much immediately developed. So why don't you speak to what you're doing on your virtual shopping trips?
Yeah, so I'd actually had this idea a couple of years ago, but never really implemented it. But if anybody who's ever watched Arrested Development can remember, they had the late great Bob Einstein play Jeffrey Tambor's surrogate to the family. He was literally just wearing a camera and a hat that said surrogate. And I always thought, why couldn't we do that for record shopping? And so when this started, I thought now is the time to introduce the record shopping surrogate. So I rushed out and bought a Steadicam for my iPhone. And now anybody anywhere in the world can FaceTime, Google Duo, Facebook message, Instagram video with us. And I can literally walk them around the store and show them anything they want to see in the bins.
And how's that going for you so far?
It's been pretty good. It's fun. It's weird at first to get used to like looking at your customer on a phone and having them see your face so close up. It's social distancing's opposite, but through the phone. And it's pretty fun. Like people are very receptive and they're like, okay, well, what about this? And, suddenly we want to go see some DVDs and, but then, he was in this movie. So let's go back to the Bowie section and see what, Bowie albums you've got. It's been a lot of fun. And I've actually sold stuff that I never thought I would. Like people are like, hey, I'm out of incense. Can you show me what scents that you have? And so I'm pulling individual sticks of incense for people.
That's great. What other, are there any other interesting ways that you're communicating with your customers, maybe just outside of that this situation has made you kind of think outside of how you normally do business?
I would say the furthest thing that we've done from what we normally do is we launched a Patreon so that our customers can support the store in a different way. And it's not just, please give us your money. We're trying to offer a value for your money. So we're offering various tiers of discounts, or we do a live video every Monday where we show our new arrivals on Facebook. And so we've got special early access packages for that and all sorts of, different options that people can mix and match to fit what's best for them. And it also gives us a little bit of extra income.
I think that's a great concept because it's something that for your customers that want to provide some sort of support and love to the store right now, it gives you that ability to have that. But I think what's nice about the Patreon concept is that it also speaks to the future. It doesn't have to. It's something that you can grow. That's a little bit of a new business approach, and like you said, you're giving something back to them. So that's something that can continue. Well beyond the situation we're in now.
Absolutely, we're already making plans for the future and how we can make this thing better.
That's great. Then also another thing that I think would be interesting to speak to, we've seen a lot of artists that are doing online performances, sort of virtual shows, living room concerts, and that sort of thing. And one thing that the CIMS stores are very known for is our in-store performances. Many of our stores have stages. They've built out, almost like mini venues in their stores. And so, Paul, why don't you speak to what you're doing there to kind of keep that idea alive with your customer?
Yeah. First, both those ideas Justin mentioned are great, and they're both things we've been talking about too. I love the virtual shopping idea. I think that is a real way to get the flavor of your store. But yes, we kind of pioneered in stores in many ways. 25 years ago, we started doing them. or more, almost 30 years ago, we did our first. And that's something that over the years has really connected our audience to our store. And 28 minutes ago, we launched a campaign. Colorado artist Nathaniel Rateliff is going to do a virtual May Day cocktail party and concert for our clients. And all you have to do to get an invite is buy any LP or any CD off our website. If you buy Nathaniel's latest record, we'll get it autographed for you. But then you'll get next week, and when the promotion ends, you'll get the customer will get an email with a secure code that will allow them to participate in this concert, this virtual concert with a very, very popular artist here in Colorado. So, I think that it's the first tentative steps towards some kind of model that doesn't involve, people being in the same room exactly. And this is, a major issue. Record stores, like bookstores, are high touch experiences. And, when I hear the governor or the mayor saying, well, you're going to have to sterilize your store, every day or between customers. I have literally 1 million records in my store. This is impossible. So we're going to have to figure out how we keep our customers safe. This is why I love this idea, that Justin's putting into practice with this virtual shopping. I'm certain that this reality will not be the reality forever, but we're going to have to transition here for probably a little longer than we're comfortable with into making stores that were built for people to touch stuff meaningful in a non-touch world.
Yeah, I think for our retailers, that really is the challenge, because so much of what we do is about that tactile experience with the music, being able to hold the record in your hands and look at the artwork and even just digging through the records. I mean, that's all part of the experience of being in a record store. So that definitely is going to be a challenge for us. But again, to going back to Justin's virtual shop, I just think that's so great because, like you were saying, Paul, it really gives, you still get, other than just like a web online shopping experience, it's a little bit more virtual reality and taps into that a little bit more. So I think that's great. What about, so we've obviously, we are one of the co-founders of Record Store Day. And this has been, this time of year is normally one of the biggest times a year for independent retail, music retail. And obviously that day was supposed to be last weekend. It didn't happen. It will happen in some capacity, but it's going to be a very different type of thing for us all in our stores this year. I guess, Justin, do you want to speak to that a little bit, of just your feelings on dealing with the loss of Record Store Day during this time as well?
It's obviously a huge blow. I mean, we do the amount of business that we can do in a month in a single day on Record Store Day. So to not have that day, it sort of skews your entire calendar year to think about cash flow and just your revenue in general, like where you're going to be in a couple months. So that's a scary prospect. But that being said, in whatever capacity Record Store Day ends up being this year, we're going to do our best to make the absolute best of it and just kind of adapt to the new reality of how do we have an event with a lot of people, and how do we have food trucks, and how do we do live music. And they're all conversations that we're already having, and we're going to continue to work them out. And no matter what the day ends up being, I think it is about the stores, and our community has been really supportive of us through this entire thing. And so I think people will rally in whatever form Record Store Day takes.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
It's about the stores, but I'm one of the paradigm shifts in my head is it's about the concept of the store. because the store may be off limits depending on our state, city, and federal government, what they say. So, and this is one of the main points I'd like to make about how we've dealt with this period. I'm known in my community. I am known as somebody who is friendly and thoughtful and writes a lot. I was an English teacher before I did this. And so I've taken those qualities and I've tried to manifest them in some way in my communication to the public. So every week since we closed for the last, 5 weeks, I've created a customer newsletter and an employee newsletter that I've sent to everybody. That is kind of a mixture of informative, factual, and highly emotional, and what I would consider loving. And that's the thing that I find heartening and hopeful about this period, is the number of customers who respond well to being, and employees who respond well and emotionally to being told I love them and I care about them and I miss them. And, that's not something I would normally be doing in my customer communications. I'd be more, I don't want to say tough guy, but, I'd be professional and, but this has been the time for asking people about their children, asking people what they're doing to stay sane. I filmed a video tour of my listening room, which I'm sitting in right now, which got a large number of hits. People really loved that. And I don't know that they were loving I don't know how they felt about what they actually saw. It was the fact that I opened myself up emotionally, and I actually, teared up on cell phone talking about my employees, and that, I think that has been, kind of my guiding principle in dealing with this. The two things I'm most concerned about are the health of my employees and customers, and the emotional health of my community. How I can let them know we're here, we still care about you, we're going to be here when this is over, and we care about you as people, not just as wallets.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful, Paul. I mean, I think right now we're in a really emotional time. I know in my lifetime, probably in many of our lifetimes, this is the most unique situation. I've had multiple conversations where we all just feel like we're living in a bit of a sci-fi film, and it's hard to know how to navigate that. So I think everyone's really leaning on that emotional connection, because you can't have the in-person one. So it's like, how do you bridge that gap right now? Mm-hmm. It's the catchphrase that became, socially distancing. It's kind of an off-putting term, because we're not really socially distancing. We're just having to physically distance right now. And I think thankfully we have all of these avenues of technology that are allowing us to still be together and connect. I mean, just like we're doing today. So I think that's incredible, and something you touched on, Paul, about going into the future. So let's talk about that, because again, I think this time is making us have to reevaluate our businesses and how we do business and how you interact with your customers. And some of that's changing. And I think that some of that will carry with you even after this is over. So could you guys both take a minute to kind of speak to that before we wrap up, just as far as how do you see your businesses moving into the future? Justin?
It's such a big question, because I'm not even sure where to start. Like, currently I'm running a warehouse, and that's not what I ever set out to do. And so I really can't wait to have people back in the store, but how do we do it safely and effectively? There's the basics, providing gloves to people who want them. I've ordered hand sanitizer, like wall mounts, to place throughout the store for people to use as they see fit. And also, like, how are we making sure that our employees are safe? because, obviously this is a new reality that we're living in, and we're going to have to make it work for everyone. So I'm not sure, honestly, what the future is and what the store is. I'd like to say that we're going to get back to as normal as possible, and that, the order will be lifted and our customers will come flooding back. But it just remains to be seen.
Paul, how about you?
Well, I'll take it slightly different and non-emotional. I'll talk about money. We built this store over 32 years, and I actually built the building we're in now. And we have created an economic model that justifies, almost 12,000 feet and 37 employees and a mortgage that, reflects that, and buying policies that reflect that. So, we're going to have to, within the framework of curbside delivery, virtual shoppers, we're going to have to try to recreate an economic model that meets the previous needs of the store, but is in line with the current reality of our society, which is going to be very different. This is a major challenge that a lot of businesses are going to face. Larger businesses especially. Smaller businesses have a different set of challenges in that they're probably not getting a lot of the government help, and they're off the radar of a lot of the programs that are out there. But larger businesses have the challenge of the previous reality of economic, baseline, and suddenly we'll be making half or less the amount of money. Now we're making 100% less. So, issues of sustainability and how you keep going in this environment where you are dealing with half the money and the same amount of expenses, very challenging. It's going to be a very challenging future, I think. We're independent, we're scrappy. We built our store from absolutely nothing and made it a huge, gigantic part of the community. So I believe it can be done again. But as you probably noticed, I'm not a kid. So I feel like, I look over at Justin and he's a lot younger than me. I wish I had the energy of youth. And here's another factor that people may not think of. My wife and I are over 60 and 70, respectively. And we can't go, our mayor is saying people over 60 shouldn't go out. This is going to be tough to run a store long distance, which I've done for 6 weeks now, by email and text and phone. But my customers are used to seeing me, and it's going to be a real challenge to recreate that world virtually.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the thing that's why I think we've been working really hard to spread the message. We've had a lot of artist support as well. Just spreading the message of the importance of these stores, because some of them, many of our stores in their community, they are sort of the anchor of that community. A lot of those people were the first to come into a neighborhood and open a shop and bring the community together and bring a lot of those businesses together around that, because the record store gave people a place to meet and relate and connect. So it's really important to remember that, because I think a lot of the other businesses that are out there too, have that independent music store to thank for getting the community going in a lot of respects. So,
yeah, one of the things I've been saying lately a lot is everybody in their mind and heart has some view of Main Street and what Main Street is to them. And I've been telling people, if you want Main Street and that idealistic vision to exist post-corona, you got to support the businesses that make up Main Street.
Right.
And there's a million of them, and everybody's got their own vision of what Main Street is, whether it's the shoe repair guy or the record store, and we're next door to one of the biggest independent bookstores in the country. And I can't tell you how meaningful the presence of that bookstore called Tattered Cover has been to the growth of Denver and Colorado. And, I feel like we're part of that too. And, so there's more at stake here than the individual financial vagaries of any one owner or any group of employees. It is the soul of the community that's at stake. And people are going to have to, if that's something they value, they're going to have to figure out a way to support it and keep it alive in this, low touch environment we're entering into.
Yeah, Andrea, you hit it exactly. We opened this shop 9 years ago here in Poughkeepsie, and I'm not a native of Poughkeepsie. I moved down from the Albany area to do this, and understand there hadn't been a record store in Poughkeepsie in over 20 years. And so we've had people from day one literally thanking us for our presence here in the community. And I've really grown to call this area my home, and I love it. It's beautiful, and we're trying to help, bring it back a little bit. And I think we're doing our part.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for sharing your stories, and I think thank you for sharing your innovations as well, Justin. That is, I want to go shop your store now.
Let me know.
However possible. And I know that I have to put on blinders whenever I get the Twist and Shout emails that have pictures of stuff they're selling online. I think the other day I saw that they had a Beatles butcher cover there, and I had to keep from clicking, fight the good fight, or I might get kicked out of my house by my wife, because as you can see, behind me, I've got a bit of a problem, and a good chunk of those records were bought at Twist and Shout. So I look forward to getting back there. And Andrea, I just have one question. As far as Record Store Day, do you all have a new date yet, or is that still being determined?
We're still working out that. I mean, we're trying, again, this is a day that is created for not just the record stores, but it is for the record community. It's for the customers. It's for the stores. It's just all about celebrating that experience. So that we want to stay true to that. And so I think, it's been obviously very difficult. It's also a worldwide event. So we're having to kind of coordinate our efforts with our international partners as well. But we're getting close. I mean, again, we're trying to just constantly evaluate and make the best decisions for everyone, the safety of the customers, the safety of the stores, and have a day. So I think we're close to figuring that out. And there should probably be an update on that soon.
Great. Well, everyone who's attending here or hearing this recording, please take part in Record Store Day. If you haven't done it before, make this your first time. But it is a super, super day, and we look forward to it happening again. Let's give a hand to our, however you want to, jazz hands or with the mics on, some clapping. But what you don't know is these folks only found out like a few days ago that they were going to be part of this. That's why we found a place, but we had to just make another stream in our channel here to make it happen. So thank you all personally, from my personal vantage point, for coming in at the practically the last minute to do this. It's great to hear these stories, although it's not great to hear what's happening now, and we're hopeful. Thank you. And yes, everyone, if you want to go over to the Slack channel, the link's over there. And folks, if you are attendees, if you want to go over there and ask any questions, we'd appreciate it.